Welcome to NEXTGames Omen series. Today, we'll be taking on Kin solo with Dragoon using Trust. I'll first start by going over the battle strategies that I recommend you use during this run, and then I'll show you a battle example using those strategies. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now let's go ahead and talk about the stats you're going to need in order to reliably take this one on. The most important one is going to be accuracy. In both your TP and weapon skill gear sets, you want to have close to 1400 accuracy. This is normally going to mean that you want to either have Sublime Sushi as your food, or in my case, I am using Seafood Gratin, which gives you extra magic evasion, and I highly recommend it on the Omen bosses. Now, also in your final gear set for both TP and weapon skills, you want to make sure that you're approaching that 50% damage taken reduction mark. Now, normally for this, I use my Haranjandi Helm and Mail sets that I got from the Odin HTMB, but you can also simply use the Naomi sets from Odyssey, which will actually give you that same damage taken reduction, but a significant amount more of magic evasion. Historically on these Omen bosses, I've used that Haranjandi Helm and Mail set for the first 50%, and the Naomi set for the last 50%. I wanted to kind of change that up today, so today I went ahead and wore that Haranjandi Helm and Mail set for the entire run to see if I could live through it, and surprisingly I could. Now I definitely took a lot more damage doing it this way, so I just kind of offered it as a comparison for you can do it both ways. It's just kind of how safe you want to be with your run. Now Kin has two main mechanics that you're going to want to look out for in this run. The first one, and the easiest to avoid, is Death Sentence. It is a 5-second doom ability that is only used if someone has too much cumulative enmity. So as long as you don't provoke, and as long as you are using Trust, you really should not see this ability. If you're taking Kin on in a party format, you want to make sure to not use other things such as Flash that will give you high amounts of cumulative enmity. Now the second mechanic you want to look out for is when he crosses the hit point thresholds of 75%, 50, 25, and 10%. He will use an ability called Target that in itself does not do anything. But a minute and 30 seconds after he uses that Target ability, if that person has maintained hate for that entire time, he is now going to use an ability on them called the 11th Dimension. This is going to terrorize that person that Target was used on for 3 minutes. Now the easiest way to deal with this is to simply have ArcEV tank, and when it's finally used on him at 75%, you can get hate and pull the main boss away when it's finally used on him. You can then use that time to position both Kin and your Trust appropriately so you can better take on that last 50% of the fight. Now if you get into danger and ArcEV doesn't have hate back at that 50% mark, I recommend using Super Jump shortly after Target is used at 50% to go ahead and give hate back to ArcEV and proceed with the fight. Now continuing this on, ArcEV will then normally get 11th Dimension used on him around that 25% hit point threshold. It will then wear off right around 10%, just in time for him to hopefully regain hate and then get it used on him again after that 10% mark. Now at 10%, you'll want to super jump after Target is used if for whatever reason he had not gotten hate back by that time. Now in actuality, those two main abilities of Kin's aren't that much of a risk to you. But there is another thing going on during this fight that will greatly slow you down, and that is he's going to absorb all physical damage during TP moves, so this includes your weapon skills, and will absorb all magic and skill chain damage during your castings. So that's going to make it so that you don't want to ever weapon skill when he is using a TP ability, and you never want to skill chain when he is casting a spell. Now for the first 50%, this isn't overly challenging. You can just spam 2-step skill chains to try and control how often you actually end up curing him. Obviously, if he's about to cast a spell and you're about to close a skill chain, you would kind of hold off until the window is closed and then weapon skill. That's the kind of tactics you want to use. However, from 25% to 50%, one, interference is going to start being used, which is going to inflict a lot more damage to both you and your wyvern, so be careful. And then additionally, TP moves are used more frequently under 50%. So I suggest, if possible, turning during TP moves to not cure him during those periods of time. Now under 10%, it will be very hard to keep your wyvern alive due to all the interferences, but do the best you can to keep your DPS up and keep him alive. Additionally, you want to make sure that you turn for all of his TP moves under 10% or you're going to cure him a large amount. And only turn and weapon skill when you see him casting. This is going to slow down your last 10%, but in the long run it will make it much faster. Now the way you do this is one of two ways. One, you can just make sure that you never skill chain by using a weapon skill that will not skill chain with itself. Or you can try and get in some extra skill chain damage, but being very mindful to not do it right before a casting. I chose to use the second method during my battle example, but the first one really is safer. Lastly, I want to point out that Kin will use Mana Font at some point during the run, but it's not too much of a risk to you, and also be sure to use Angon as much as possible to keep that DPS going. Now in regards to Trust, I actually suggest that you use Arkiv as previously recommended to tank, Joachim for marches, Koromoru for haste and Dia, and Monboro and Yorinorian for cures. Now if you don't have Monboro, you can also use either Yignis or Seththus in his place, and it should work just fine. Let's go ahead and see what our battle example looks like. Enjoy the run, everyone. that's going to be it for the Dragoon solo of Kin. I hope you found that helpful. Now, NEXTGames now has a Discord channel where I can share videos that are being worked on and where viewers can ask questions. Additionally, NEXTGames also now has a merch shop in addition to the Patreon channel for anyone wishing to support the NEXTGames channel. Links to all of this can be found in the NEXTGames YouTube banner. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Stay safe and stay healthy out there.